September. Okay, so I'm going to tell my story. It's wild. I'm 34 years old, so I've lived through 3.4 decades of CF, and it's changing by the day. So I'll kind of tell my story and how excited I am for the future. And Ted, I like your little rundown of your daughter. That just gives me hope to see her out there living her life, and you guys just supporting her and letting her be an awesome teenager, because she's still a teenager. 2 more years, I'll take her to the breweries. It's prescribed by my doctor, I promise. So I was born in 1982, and I have 2 older brothers who do not have cystic fibrosis. So when my mom had me on February 21st, and she held me for the first time, she knew something wasn't right. And mothers have this intuition, right? I'm sure all you guys, when you held your baby, some of you have, well, most of you maybe had the newborn screening thing, right? So 1982, there's no newborn screening, right? There was nothing really to detect CF. But my mom held me. She just knew something wasn't right, but the doctor said, hey, she's great. She's the cutest baby we have ever seen. Take her home and love her. She'll be just great. A lower birth rate, but no meconium ileus or anything, so they said I was great. So they sent me home, and for the first few months of my life, I had constant ear infections. When my dad would change my diapers, they were much different than my brother's diapers. 17 or so a day. And let's talk about cloth diapers, because that's what we were using in '82. I cannot even imagine what this was like for my dad and my mom. But that was a telltale sign. So they did a sweat test. The first sweat test came back negative. They just diagnosed me with failure to thrive. So my parents kind of felt defeated, but they're like, great, she doesn't have CF, because we don't really know what CF is. There's like 0 family history. There was nothing. Now it's like, it's in the news a little bit. You hear about it. Back in the 80s, nothing, right? So life goes on a little bit more failure to thrive, more ear infections. Finally, a rectal prolapse happens, and hopefully you guys have finished your muffins. Google that, too, over lunch. We'll have a round table about that. So that happens, and my parents are freaked out, right? But they take me right to the hospital. They put everything back in place. And then they send me finally to a CF center in Detroit, where they do the sweat test again, and it comes back positive. So my parents were like, okay, that explains a lot, but what is cystic fibrosis, right? You guys get a diagnosis now. What's the first thing you do that you shouldn't do? Google it, right? And that's what I tell people, get off Google, get off the internet, except when you're watching videos of me. Just kidding. No, but seriously, they had nothing, right? They got the diagnosis. The prognosis was she's probably not going to live long enough to graduate from high school, because at the time, that's what the doctors were seeing. In reality, patients, the median age of survival could have been in the 20s, but the doctors were only seeing people survive into their teens, right? So my parents got this news, and they're like, well, that's not good news. And I'm sure they were upset and frustrated, but they didn't let that kind of shape the way they were going to treat me, right? So if you hit the next slide, this is, yeah. So upon diagnosis, they kind of made this decision that they were not going to let me be treated like anyone else. I was going to be just like my brothers, and you'll see it from here, where I was playing t-ball here and trash talking with the third baseman who's picking a wedgie, if you look closely. Don't you think? And those tube socks are legit. And I have Big League Chew in my back pocket, because nowadays you can't get away with stuff like that. But all right, so then the next slide you'll see I'm skateboarding with my brothers. I'm the short one, of course, and my 2 brothers are on the left. And this was us all day, every day in the summer especially. We're outside skateboarding, playing basketball, riding bikes, just outside living life. I didn't have any medications at the time, because all we had were enzymes and vitamins, right? So I took vitamin E and A, I think, and then enzymes, and then my parents beat me. Well, no, where's the social worker? I met him a little bit ago. No, not like that. So the treatments, I think the next slide could be a picture of me getting beat. That might be the next slide. Yeah, give it one more little clicky poo. Oh, no. This is, again, back to real life here as a child. I had to do all the chores, including washing the dishes in a panda vest. There are pandas on that vest, by the way. I'm crying in this picture because I wanted to be the one to wash the dishes, but my brother was washing them. I was on drying duty, so I was pretty peeved. And then the next picture, it's manual labor, where my dad, the tall, bald guy, and I'm a Michigan State sweatpants, of course. I'm outside building a deck, right? There were like no breaks for me as a child. They just used me and abused me, I guess. But it just shows you, like, they weren't going to treat me, shelter me, keep me from doing anything. I'm just like, notice how my brothers aren't really helping in this, but I'll bring that up with them later. But yeah, this is it. This was my childhood, and I attribute that to why I'm so healthy today and had just a great positive upbringing. The next slide, I think, is me actually getting beat. Yep. That's not my mom. That's at cystic fibrosis camp, which I'll talk about in a second. Yeah, let that digest for a little bit. But this little table here, it's a little orange table that I had one just like that at my house, and my parents would put me on that table, and it would go up and down, and they would pound my chest, my back, and my sides to loosen that mucus up, right? So 2, 3, 4 times a day, my parents and I would go, and they would have, I'm sure they had a little session of getting their grievances out, and then I would have a chest therapy session. And my dad is 6'7", so before the table came along, my dad would just like lay me down where my feet were my head was at his feet, and he would just pound me like a little bear, like he's the softest man in the world. He's so gentle and nice. And then my mom would jump in, and she was a college softball player and a gym teacher. So when she jumped in, sometimes she would leave her rings on, and I knew that maybe I wasn't being good that day because that sting was, I think I still have some welts. I should actually talk to that social worker. But this was like one time that now you just like throw the kids on the vest and be like, all right, here you go. See ya, here's your iPad. I do it too, don't worry. But like this was our personal connection, right? My dad was a music teacher, and he would do like paradiddles and teach me drum beats and stuff while he was pounding me, and we would sing. And I guess maybe that was my first dose of percussion and why I became a drummer. But it was just cool to have that family time and connection. And my brothers would jump in. I'm not sure if that was condoned or not, but they would actually jump in and help pound as well. So that was us. That was treatments in the 80s. Pounding, exercise-ish, and enzymes. So the next slide, I think, is what you guys are really going to love. Yeah. So this is CF camp. All of us in this picture have cystic fibrosis. Yeah. So now they're like, don't even look at somebody if they have CF. I mean, if you have CF and you're watching this right now, I'd probably turn away because you might catch my Pseudomonas or something. Okay, this is like 1989 or so. There's 300, maybe more of us at this CF camp. We're sleeping in the same bunks. We're doing nebulizers. At that point, I didn't have nebulizers, but everyone else was doing them in the bunks. We're getting pounded, all of us, like 50 of us in a room at once, getting pounded and coughing on each other. We're drinking bug juice together. One cool thing, though, is they did say, instead of a chest therapy session today, you can go run for 15 minutes, so that was cool. They were like ahead of their time, like 1988, running instead of chest therapy. Cool, I dug that. But that was like the coolest time, one of the coolest times of my life, right? Because it was a chance where we could all connect with somebody else going through what we were going through. Today, you hop online, you go to Facebook, you go to a chat group, and you talk to somebody. It's cool, but there's nothing like that personal connection. People would be so sick in the hospital, but they would get out of the hospital just to go to camp for 4 days and then go back to the hospital to finish treatments. Once Pseudomonas, it used to be called Pseudomonas sepacia, started popping up, they divided the camps in half. So the first week would be non-Pseudomonas patients or non-sepacia patients. And then the second week would be sepacia patients, just to kind of like divide us up. And then it just didn't really help, so they shut down the camps, which was I remember getting the letter saying CF camps are now canceled because of cross-contamination. Big bummer, big blow to the community, but you got to do what you got to do to keep people healthy and keep things on track. But it was cool. And nowadays, if you pick up this cross-contamination packet, you guys know how important it is to do that. So I lived in that, let's just say, like a lot of things, the 80s were cool, but really not that healthy. I mean, we're like no seatbelts, there's no car seats. Mom's like Britney Spears and you by holding you in your lap going to the gas station. I mean, the 80s were awesome, and really awesome music. Foreigner, anybody? Yeah, there's a lot of bad things about the 80s, and this is one of them. I think the next slide is, I don't know. Here it is. Okay. So I'm usually moving around a lot, but since I'm on camera, I have to stay in one area, so bear with me. So the treatments really ramped up when I was in my early teens, right? That's when Pomazyme came out. 1993, I was about 11 or so, and that's the first actual CF medication that I took. That was the one, like, I remember the respiratory therapist coming over and saying, "This is a nebulizer." I'm like, "Oh, I saw that at camp a couple times." But I wasn't doing any of those treatments yet because they weren't out, right? And I didn't do albuterol because it doesn't really help me, so I lucked out there. But they brought this over, and I remember thinking, like, this is the first time that anything has really, like, set in, like, oh, I have cystic fibrosis now. What is this? This is the first medication out to treat CF, right? So I thought it was cool that I finally had something to show for myself, like a CF badge of honor was this drug that came out. But it was also like, okay, well, this isn't going away. I'm going to have CF forever, and we really need to work on this mucus stuff forever, right? Then Toby comes out after being in the clinical trials for that, made some bank in middle school and high school, got some new, I think, Nintendo games or something with that money you get in clinical trials. Am I right? I mean, that's the only reason to do clinical trials. I'm kidding, of course. Kids, if you're watching, should they be in school? Should there be kids in school? I don't know. I don't know what day it is. So Toby hits the market, and that's cool because that's like the other first inhaled treatment that goes and treats the bacteria in your lungs. It's twice a day. It's 20-some minutes a time. It's a pain in the butt, puts a kink in a crimp in your style, but you got to do it, right? And the vest also comes out around that time too. So I got my first vest, which was the vest. It was 125 pounds. I'm not even kidding you. With two wheels that you would like pull it back and like walk it around, right? My parents took that thing to Florida and a Crown Victoria once, and my brothers had to carry it up to the Motel 6. That's how we did it in the 80s, 90s at that point, and carry this thing up to the hotel room so I could do the vest, because they're like, we're on vacation, we're not beating you, we're not pounding you. Although they probably did want to beat me, they were not pounding me. So like, and now look at the vests, they're like 12 pounds, 10 pounds. There's different vest companies. So I was like the dinosaur. I'm a dinosaur in CF world, but the vest was crazy huge. So that comes out. Then fast forward, we got Caistin. What else we got? Ibuprofen. Take a lot of that. It's good for you. It gave me heartburn, and I'm not sure what it really did, but they were giving me like 3,200 milligrams of ibuprofen. I felt no pain for about 6 months, let's just say that. But I did have a massive heartburn issue. But we live and we learn, right? That's what CF's all about. Zithromycin comes out, take some of that. And now we're looking at drugs that are like treating the underlying cause, which we'll get to in a little bit, and I'll share my story with that. But so in my 3 decades of life, I've seen treatments go from nothing to treating infection-specific bacteria, and now the underlying cause. So if you fast forward to the next slide, it'll show that in correlation with median age of survival, right? This is like astonishing. When I was diagnosed, again, they said like maybe graduate from high school if she's lucky. Not because I wasn't very smart, but because, I know, my parents are both teachers, just like your daughter. Very bright, but not book smart. It's street smarts, that's more important. Being able to navigate a city on your own and find the best breweries, way more important than algebra. I'm serious. And you'll see, like, now look at us. We're facing a 41-year-old median age of survival. This is just the 3 decades. So parents now, I give you guys, like, there's so much hope. I mean, you can get frustrated that Kalydeco doesn't work for your kid, or Orkambi doesn't work as well as Kalydeco, or your kid doesn't have something yet. I had nothing for like 2 decades. And now in the past 5 years, we're seeing a crazy revolution in CF. And in the next 5 years, I predict they're going to be, I sound like a politician, the next 5 years, no taxes. Would you guys vote for me? But I'm just so hopeful and so excited because we are facing down some awesome stuff. So I'm not sure where the next slide goes, but we're going to see. Okay. So I do the elementary school thing. 3rd grade is where I really realized that I have CF. I'm running out on the playground and I just start coughing, right? It was the first time I actually started coughing and couldn't stop coughing. There's like a point in your kid's life where they might notice that one day where they're like, oh, I'm coughing. And I'm still coughing. So when I had that moment on the playground, I realized like, okay, CF is forever. This is why I go to the CF clinic for my flu shot and my weight and my breathing test. I was around before breathing tests, by the way, so we've come a long way in 30 years. But I just had that moment of this is CF, but I was still healthy, right? My first IV admission for exacerbation was in 7th grade, and I was scared to death because I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought like physical therapists were just going to come in and pound me for 24 hours. Like in the back, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be terrifying. They're just going to be beating me for 24 hours. And then when they brought in the first round of IV meds, it was ceftazidime and it was yellow and it was bubbly. I'm like, whoa, I get to drink Mountain Dew out of a syringe. And then I'm like, oh, it's for my IV. I got like so excited thinking, wow, children's hospitals really are cool. But that was that first IV admission, and I was so scared that when my parents left, I started crying. And here's a trick for the kids: always start crying because they will stay. And they stayed. And my mom is at my house right now. She still hasn't left since 7th grade, so still trying. But it was just cool to have them there, and that was my first admission. And then after that, they started popping up more and more and more, 2 to 3 times a year. Prom. From the hospital, we had the after party at room 579 with some sparkling champagne, or cider, I mean. Everything, every holiday in the hospital. Eventually went off to college, and we'll get to that. I don't know if it's the next slide or after, but it was just like part of my thing was this cycle that I was in. And I came up with this like thought on the plane this week about how I was in the cycle of CF, and I see it so much, and I still see it today, people my age who are in this cycle where once you're sick and in the hospital, it's like that's you're in the hospital, That was me all through high school, all through my early 20s. Before I started exercising, I was in this every 3 to 4 months of being admitted for IVs because that's what I was used to, and that's what I thought CF was. And then I had a big game changer, which might be coming up. Okay, yeah, so this was college, right? I'm in the hospital. I wanted to move to New York and work on Broadway because I love Broadway show tunes and shows. If anyone wants to talk about that during the chat, let's do that because I love dorking out about that. I just wanted to move to New York, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, I don't really know what my future is going to be because my pulmonary function was dropping. I was in the hospital so much. I just didn't know. I'd come to these CF education days when patients were allowed to be at them together. And I'd see like median age of survival was like 28 and 29. And I'm like, that kind of sucks because I'm now 18, 19. I really didn't know what my future was going to be, right? So instead I stayed back in Detroit and went to Wayne State, studied theater there for a couple years, and then told my parents, who were both teachers, that I was dropping out of college because why? I think school is for fools was the quote I said, which is not true, kids watching. School is very important. Again, my parents are both teachers. Sarah, teacher. Very important. But I knew, again, I wasn't sure what my future was going to be. So I'm like, I want to take a hiatus from college and find something I really love to do. And that's where like Rock CF kind of came into play. And so when I dropped out of college, took a hiatus, I started folding t-shirts for the Detroit Tigers and Detroit Red Wings. So huge. My parents were so proud of that. Like, great, now she's making $7 an hour and folding t-shirts. We are so proud. But if you look at the t-shirts over there, I gained knowledge from these. So I'm all about experiences rather than books, unless it's a good Nora Roberts. I don't read Nora Roberts, but whatever. So next slide. So this is us in the rock band. People still ask me, well, you say I identify as a rock star. No. We played around Detroit for a while, and then I haven't played in like 3 years. So Genentech has a video out right now. It's all about me and really telling my story and finally being honest about not being as compliant as I should have been. I'm looking at you and thinking about your daughter. She's going to be fine. But at that age, I kind of stopped doing my meds for a little bit and was too focused on the band. So you live and you learn. But this was the band. This is kind of how we started Rock CF with these rock concerts and getting people together to raise money and awareness for CF. So that's what we did. But again, I wasn't my healthiest at the time. Playing drums in a smoky bar in Detroit. You load the drums in at 7 o'clock and you're there until 2 in the morning in a smoky bar. That's not really that good for you. So I can kind of correlate that with my poor health. So my pulmonary function was really low and I was not really taking care of myself. Not doing my treatments like I should have been. and in smoky bars a lot, so that's not good. And also not exercising. So we'll jump forward. Maybe one more? Okay, so 2004, when I was 22-ish, I was so sick that I finally talked to social workers and they said, you might want to think about Social Security disability. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but okay. So we look into it and I qualified, right? And this was cool because it was extra income, but it's also setting that tone where you're kind of sick. And are you ever going to be able to get off of Social Security and disability, or is this me for the rest of my life, right? I could work, but you could only make $1,100 a month, $1,000 a month. So that was my life for the next like 10 years. And if you, I think, click through, that didn't help with my mental state, right? There we go, that's a good one. So I was so sick that I was on disability. I'm in the hospital 2, 3, 4 times a year. My pulmonary function's 50, maybe 60% on a good day. I didn't know what I could do with my life. Like, what was my future? Am I just gonna ride this out, play in the band, and live on Social Security the rest of my life? Because that's what a lot of people were doing with CF my age at home. So I said, no. After years of this, I said, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of being sick. There's more that I can do. Then I finally started doing my treatments more regularly, like I should have. But what else can I do? And the solution is exercise. And I'm glad that's a round table today, because I'm very huge about exercise. So you'll see a couch potato here. I was actually the couch that the potato is sitting on. I was so inactive at the time. Because you remember the pictures of me as a very active kid, right? But in my teens, my lung function started to drop and I couldn't keep up with kids, right? So I had these dreams of playing in the NBA before there was a WNBA. Who doesn't love the WNBA? Nobody? Perfect. Come on, they're great. College basketball is better. But I was so active. I was a great basketball player, but I didn't grow. And then I just couldn't keep up with the other kids. So I kind of fell off the exercise wagon. Just like your daughter, I'm happy to hear, 19, and she's hitting the gym. I tried that a couple times when I was 19, 20, and it just didn't work out because I couldn't do it. And I got discouraged. And then I decided, you know what, I'm totally sick of being sick. I have to do something. So that's when the exercise really, I got serious about it. I changed my diet to a more whole food-based, organic situation. Now vegetarian, which I get stuff heck from my other CF friends. But things are working. So when I first started running, I think next slide. I mean, I'm not even going to tell you. I think I'll show you a little video. I think we got those dialed up. Without running, I would probably not be here today. My doctor, he says that like running is saving my life. Cystic fibrosis, it's something that you're born with. It causes your body to produce this really thick and sticky mucus. The mucus in the lungs traps bacteria. Then the bacteria turns into lung infections. And that's kind of like why people die from CF, is lung issues. They told my parents I wouldn't live long enough to graduate from high school. I wouldn't be here today without running. We just run through the streets of Detroit, through the old neighborhoods, and people just want to get rid of them and tear them down, but they don't see the opportunities. That's the way I see life. It's like, what can I do with what's in front of me? I was a couch potato. I was so inactive. My lung function was probably 50 to 60%. I was in the hospital 2 to 3 times a year treating lung infections. I was playing drums in a rock band, and I can kind of consider that exercise. Then I decided, I'm sick of being sick. What can I do to change my life? So I started running. When I first started, I set out to run 2 miles. In reality, I ran a block, stopped at the stop sign, bent over, and just started coughing and spitting everywhere. And after 3 months of training, my lung function climbed up to like 70%. So that was like, okay, you have to do this. And I don't know what kept me going. I guess I wanted to really prove to myself that I could do it. So I talk about how I started running. And you know how like sometimes you have these lofty goals and you think automatically you're going to achieve them without like maybe saving money in your bank account. You're like, I'm going to maybe save lots of money. And then you look at the end of the month like, well, I didn't save anything. Great. But I did get a new pair of shoes. So with running, I had this idea of going out and just busting 2 miles, right? I'm like, I'm going to just go bust 2 miles, come back. It's going to be fantastic. In reality, I went out there and I got about a block and I stopped and was coughing and spitting like everywhere. Like I'm thinking neighbors are peeking through their blinds. Like, what is going on out there? It was not pretty, but I didn't stop there. I was like, there's a fire hydrant. I think I'm going to walk to that fire hydrant, and then I'm going to run to the next block. Then I'm going to walk the next block, then I'm going to run the next block. So it took about 4 months to build up to that 2-mile run. And once I did, I was like, this is sweet. And when I ran my first mile, it was so cool, because I did it maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, but after 12 years of not being able to really run a mile, it was a huge accomplishment, right? So I kept adding on and adding on. I did my first 5K, then my first 10K, then my first half marathon, which was funny because who wants to run 13 miles? I don't know. And now who wants to run 26 miles? Well, I guess I do. It's for charity. Yep. But when my old elementary school gym teacher, and he was also my middle school gym teacher, called me one day. I hadn't seen him in like a decade. And he's like, Em, I want to train you for a half marathon. And I'm like, well, that sounds cute, Kev, but I'm not sure, Coach, this is going to be cute. So I print out this training program, and I look at like a Saturday, and it's like 10-mile run. I'm like, who is running 10 miles? That is ludicrous, right? So we did. We went out there, and afterward, he took me to breakfast, and we had like pancakes. And I went to the bathroom, and I just saw like salt crystals all over my face. Because you know we got that little extra salty sweat, right? So I wiped it off. I was like, okay, this was like that was cool. That was like another battle scar, was the salt crystals. But I loved it. I loved the 10-mile run. So then I did the first half, and since then, I've done like 12 or 15 half marathons. I can't really count that well. A half iron distance triathlon, which is crazy. You like, I don't know how to swim. I grew up on an island. Seriously, I really did. Not Gilligan's Island, but like an island in the Detroit River. I don't know how to swim forward, but I can like hang out in water for hours. So I had somebody swim for me who also had CF, and then he tagged me, and I biked the 56 miles, and then ran the 13.1 in North Carolina. Then I've done like 112-mile bike rides. And just in September, Jerry Cahill and I, which I think is the next slide, we biked from Bahaba. Is that how you say it? Yeah, and we stayed in Bangor. Bangor, and biked all the way down to New York City. So that was like fundraising. It was for our health, and it was also for awareness about how cool exercise can be for you. So now on my plate is my first full marathon in November, so that will be really fun. If you guys don't hear from me ever again, it was a pleasure meeting you all. I might not just dip into a pizza place in New York and just call that good. But yeah, so the coolest thing, I think next slide, is the PFTs. Within 3 months of training, yeah, we're dressed as Tom Selleck. We can talk about that later. My PFTs jumped just within 3 months of training up to like 74, which was the highest I can remember seeing them like ever, which is so cool. And that's just with running, and I was starting to cycle at the time too. So I was training for a bike ride from Detroit to Chicago, and like I'd go out for 20-mile training rides and think that I just like ran a marathon, and I drink like 8 Gatorades. I mean, now it's like 20 miles is like a morning ride before work. So it's just cool to see the progression, but then feel how much better I feel. I feel like a whole different person. Just with the exercise, I was out of the hospital 18 months rather than 2 to 3 times, 4 times a year. So there is something to exercise, and it's good for everybody. It's good to move, but with CF, it's great for our lungs, of course. But there's also studies out there that show that it actually affects your cells. So the biggest thing I'm working on now with Ronnie Sharp, who spoke here last year, we're working on this thing with hospital, how to prescribe exercise as medicine, right? Because you can go to your clinic and the doctor asks you, are you exercising? And you'll be like, yeah. And they're like, what are you doing? How much? Okay, great, keep it up. But is there a science behind how much we should be doing, at what intensity, and for how long? That's what we're going to try to figure out. So we're working on it. I will not rest until we know that exercise can be prescribed as medicine. Right now it's just advice. So yeah, this is Jerry and I finishing in New York last year after our 500-mile ride. And Jerry, I'm sure you guys know of Jerry Cahill. He's turning 60 in June. He's an old New Yorker, old crabby New Yorker who is like my hero. And I looked up to him. When I first started exercising, again, I was like just getting into it. And I met Jerry on these, like, I don't know, back in the early 2000s, like, I don't know, we didn't have Facebook, so I don't know what it was. Listserv or something. And I found Jerry's story, and I'm like, this guy's like 50, maybe 40 something, and why is he so healthy, right? I'm like, did he have a lung transplant? No. How's he alive? Because exercise. He is the pioneer, or at least the one that I know, that kind of said forever that exercise is extending his life. He was a college pole vaulter, track, just active guy, always bikes, runs, swims, does anything to stay active. And he had a lung transplant 4 years ago at age 55 or 56. So to be able to now ride with him and call him a friend is pretty awesome, that we get to ride 500 miles together, and he's crabby New Yorker, and we get to eat ice cream together and just like really share stories, and he keeps me motivated. It's so cool that you can like spend that much time on a bike. And this year he's turning 60, so why not ride 600 miles instead of 500 miles? So that's what we're doing in September, is the California coast. We're gonna ride 600 miles. So again, if you guys don't see or hear from me, call Jerry, because he probably pushed me over the Devil's Pass corner. Yeah, there's something called the Devil's Pass, so I'm a little nervous. But it's just awesome. So he gives me hope. And there's so many younger people out there that are just kicking butt, and it is so fun to watch these guys, like 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, high school kids, all over the world, like pro rugby players with CF. It's just so cool. And the fact that the one good thing about social media, one of them, is that you can connect and see these stories and be inspired. And you guys should be so inspired by pioneers like Jerry, because don't tell him I said this, he's awesome. So next slide. Okay, here's where we get real. So my takeaways in my talks are obviously exercise, a positive outlook. I didn't really get into diet, but we can, if you guys want to do a little during the Q&A if we have time, kind of touch about my diet and how that changed along with my starting to exercise, this whole like dietary change, lifestyle change, if you will. That was a buzzword in the 2010s. So clinical trials are the other takeaway. And the reason that we have Casein and Pulmozyme and Toby and Kalydeco, of course, and Orkambi, all these drugs are because of clinical trials. They don't just like magically show up, like, here, I got this drug for your child, let's take it. I've been doing clinical trials since I was a kid. I just saw those dollar signs, and I was like, sign me up, because you know you get paid pretty good. You get fat cash with these. And like, what teenager doesn't want to make a little extra dough, huh? The pharmaceutical reps back there. I'm kidding. It is cool. But the other thing is you get to like be a part of history. Crazy, right? Really. So I did the Toby study. I did some zinc studies where you took a zinc pill. That was really cool. Really beneficial. Then the biggest thing, I don't know, maybe when you get a cold, you take some zinc, things are good. A little ginger, maybe some honey mead. I think so. That's why I bought it, for when I'm sick. So this clinical trial that I'm going to talk about has totally changed my life and given me this outlook on life that you guys should be just over the moon about, because awesome things are happening because of this first clinical trial. So I don't know what year it was, 2008, I was at a CF Family Day at Children's Hospital. I eventually, at age 25, transitioned to adult care. Transition is the hardest thing. It was like getting a divorce from my CF care team and even the lunch ladies at the hospital, okay? My thing with transition wasn't that I wasn't ready to transition. I was already doing my meds by the age 12, but it was leaving everyone. I don't like to say goodbye, so that was the hardest part about, it took 25 years. I kept saying I was moving to New York, and they're like, okay. I'm like, no, next year I'm moving to New York. No, next year I'm moving to New York. So they let me stay. And then I left, and it was sad. But I went back for the ed day, and afterward, the CF research nurse ran up to me, and she's like, I think you qualify for this new study. I'm thinking, cool. I've taken a zinc tablet before. I've inhaled Toby back in the day. I'm in. She's like, it's in Cleveland, which is about a 2.5-hour drive, and it's pretty time heavy, where you'll be going down every 7 days at least for this study. I'm like, cool. Again, saw those dollar signs, and I was like, I'm in. Sign me up. So I go down for this phase 2 trial, and it's a pill, right? They're like, here's a pill that you'll take twice a day. Part of the study was they do this nasal NPD thing where they shove a thing up your nose to hear, because did you know there's an electrical charge up here? And it's higher for people with CF. So they shoved this tube up my nose and drained like 3 different syringes through it for about 20 minutes. And you had to hold still and have a face-off with this guy holding this thing up your nose. So that was the most invasive part of any clinical trial I've ever done. But it paid off. Those are great, by the way. Google that, too, NPD. So we do this. I get through this trial, phase 2. I don't see any benefits. My PFDs actually kind of stay the same. And actually, at one point, I had to go on IVs because I got sick. I'm like, okay, that was cute. Must have been like another zinc thing. And then phase 3 rolls around, and my CF research nurse at my new adult hospital in Michigan says, do you want to be in phase 3? And I'm like, sure. What's the big deal? It's like a little pill I take twice a day. Okay. The difference between phase 2 and phase 3 was phase 3, I was actually on this real drug. At the time, it was VX770, now Kalydeco or Ivacaftor, or the street name Blue Lightning, which Foundation Care does fill it as Blue Lightning. It's crazy. It comes on my prescription as Blue Lightning. No, it doesn't. But I'm thinking maybe we do. It's so much easier than Kalydeco. It's not Kalydeco, it's Kalydeco, okay? Right? Can I get another Kalydeco in the... These are not okay. So here's the deal. I start this drug about December 22nd or 23rd in 2009 or 10. I can't really remember. We have to look back at the studies. But within 4 days of taking this drug, and that is an incredible statement, just by going from when I was diagnosed, where people weren't expected to live to 18, 20, and now over the half of the CF population is over 18. This is huge, guys, and it's because of the research, clinical trials, and the drug companies. The thing that's unique about the CF community is we're all in, and if you guys Google Vertex All In for CF, there's a new campaign that was launched yesterday. But it's not just Vertex, it's every company here. They're invested in CF, and they're invested in the fight, and they actually care about us patients. It's not just like, hey, we're a pharmaceutical company. Like, they actually are in the fight with us too, and it's so cool. And that's why over 50% of us are like old, and I'm expecting to be old and see my nieces get married and have kids and have dogs and have their kitchens flood, and it's awesome. And not just in my life, it's your life. I mean, right now we have people with CF who are doctors and lawyers and nurses and flight attendants. I don't know, I just made that up, but maybe. People working real jobs and fulfilling lives, and that's, again, because of you guys and the hard work. But your kids are going to be good. They're going to have a long life. They're going to have a future. The dreams, the 3 things that you want maybe to have are going to happen. And you guys should be so hopeful and excited about what's going to happen, because it's awesome. It is awesome. If there is a good time to live with CF, which there never is, now is the time, because we are at a point where we're not turning back. There's no way it's going to get worse. It can only get better, and we will rock CF. Yes. I'll just take this out of the bag. I mean, I'll answer any question.
I'm Susan.
Susan.
I'm Ted's, well,
Oh, yeah.
Ted's my husband.
That's nice. You didn't say I'm Ted's wife. That's very good. I definitely feel we're in Maine when things like that happen.
I was inspired, and I have a question for you about what, I know your health issues triggered you to start exercising.
Right.
What's the hardest thing for any human being to be self-motivated to do that?
Yeah.
Did you have a friend? Did you just do it?
I had people along the way kind of help me get started, but they didn't really help me with the running part. It was more like, let's go to the gym and start a workout. And then that would fizzle out after 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It was really that one time when I flew to my brother's wedding in San Francisco, and there was a group of people there, and 2 of them were runners, or one was a marathon runner. And I'm like, if she can run marathons, I can run a 5K. So it was kind of after that meeting, someone who actually was a runner, that I was like, oh, I can do this. And then I started researching more and reading Runner's World magazine because it's my favorite magazine. And I just got inspired that way. And once I really felt the positive change in my health, I was like, there's no way I can turn back now. It's very cool. And my mom actually started running at the same time. So we ran our first 5K together in Detroit, and that was cool. A cool 48-minute 5K. She's painting. She didn't know. I'm making fun of her right now. But
I just think that, I think of any excuse not to exercise.
Right.
I don't have CF.
Right.
To have that
I just read,
against you.
yeah, there was an article this morning that's like people think of any reason not to do it. And you gotta kind of like put yourself in, you gotta like guilt trip yourself a little bit. Like, if I don't run for 40 minutes or an hour, what am I gonna do with that hour? Sit and watch Netflix? Probably, and I don't hate that because I do that at home every night. It's just you have to really want to do it, and once you experience the benefits, I mean, there's mornings I get up and I'm like, oh no, but then I do it and I'm like, I feel great. Where's coffee and where's my oatmeal? And I'm just excited to start the day. All my friends who do not exercise are always tired, and I'm like, why are you tired? You're not exercising. I'm up at 5:15 running or biking or doing something, and I've got more energy than. Well, that just might be the coffee. I don't know, but it's just cool. It's not who I was, so it's nice to like feel how I feel now because it's not how I was before, and it's hard sometimes. Oh my goodness.
You mentioned that you changed your diet. What did you do differently?
Right. So this is fun. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, this typical CF diet was awesome. I spoke in Denver last week. We were talking about this. Colorado has like the lowest BMI, and because they're all eating like they're from Boulder and they just eat kale all day. So the CF patients have a really low BMI. I eat kale a lot too, but the typical CF diet was like fast food a lot and really poor, high calorie but poor calories, right? And I think when I was my sickest playing in the band, I was also eating fast food a lot and not even thinking about, I was just like, I have CF, I need the calories. I have CF, I need the calories. That's just, I used it as a crutch, right, to eat really poorly. And then I decided like this, doing research about exercise, doing more research about food and how food can be medicine and help like fuel your workouts in your life. So I kind of switched to the more whole foody thing, dropping off fast food and soda. And I started to feel really good. I've got DO, so intestinal obstruction syndrome, so I was drinking Go Lightly like I should have been sponsored by Go Lightly. I was drinking it so much. Once I cut out meat, my digestion was like awesome. So I focused on nutritional rich foods, nutrient rich foods. So now it's like a lot of beans, and it's almond butter and peanut butter. Fruit at like every meal, like fruit is the thing. A lot of veggies. And people always say, how do you get your fat? Because with Kalydeco, I have to take with fat. So it's a scoop of almond butter or peanut butter, or it's coconut oil in my oatmeal. It's avocado, like every day of my life, avocado party. It's just being smart and paying attention. And I found that there's like less inflammation. So my thing is like, you got to treat your body good. In order to deal with CF, your body should be happy and healthy. And food can do that, reduce inflammation. So like I've flown 14 times in the past 17 weeks, and I haven't gotten one cold once. So we don't have an immune problem with CF, so we don't have a low immunity, but we can catch a cold, and if we catch a cold, it can turn into something, right? So a higher immune system could help you from getting a cold, I guess. That's my view on it. So I just feel good. I feel so much more energetic, and I pay attention to the food I'm eating and the colors of it, and still high calorie. And protein, a lot of beans. My friends still like me after this lifestyle change. But I'm just more in tune, and I can't believe the way I was eating, And sure, it looks good on paper. My BMI was great, but my lungs are doing great now, and I feel great, and I wouldn't go back. I did eat oysters in Florida. Yeah.
You talked about a project
Oh, with Ronnie.
prescription with Ronnie Sharp, that exercise being more a prescription.
Yep.
Elaborate on that one.
Yeah, so that's in its early trial still with this, we didn't really meet our fundraising goal the first time, but we're not going to stop until we do reach that goal. And it's to be able to, I think, get the patients, this is like more of his study, but we're just funding it and kind of helping promote it. It would be for patients to wear devices and then just track results from them every day. Not tell them to do anything more or do anything less, just kind of get results about what we're doing and how the health is. Study that and then take it a step further then, and I think have them do more or do less of something. And I think the end result is to be able to replace a treatment or a vest treatment with exercise, right? I think that's the whole thesis, or I don't know what you call those things in studies, like the end result, right? So it's in its early phase, but there's a lot of studies at a Mayo Clinic. There's one researcher, specifically Courtney Wheatley, who has tons of published articles. And they're so fascinating because they compare exercise to albuterol, right? There's one study that's great. And then she's the one that also studied how it affects your gene and your cell and your sodium chloride. So at one point during rigorous exercise, it's like your cell almost functions like it doesn't have CF for that certain short point of time. So it's really interesting that it can go beyond just, it's essentially doing what Kalydeco does, but it's exercise. So there's so much information out there. It's still early in the ball game. I'm excited though.
On the heels of that, my question for you is, you are running so much right now.
Uh-huh.
Do you eliminate a vest treatment? Do you feel like you could eliminate a vest treatment through all your exercise?
Right. Yep. So the question is, because of all my running and biking and such, do I feel like I can eliminate a vest treatment? And the answer is no, because at my stage in the game, it's just like it is a routine. So I run in the morning, get cleaned up, eat breakfast, then do my vest. And the vest helps really nicely with digestion, so I don't want to eliminate that. But I get this question a lot, especially because of Kalydeco and how good I feel now. People ask me, or they say, like, you don't have any treatments, you just do Kalydeco. And I'm like, oh, no. Like, I did Pulmozyme yesterday morning, and I'll do Pulmozyme tonight with my vest. And even this morning, I can feel a little bit more junky because I haven't done Pulmozyme yet today. So, yeah, I definitely don't feel like at the first year and a half on Kalydeco, I was like, oh, yeah, port, take that baby out. It's been in there 13 years, just take it out. I don't even need my vest. But, yeah, I definitely need it. And some, like this week, I don't know what's going on, allergies or something. I'm coughing quite a bit. So, and it's routine.
I have so many questions. I guess just to narrow it down, like, what is the least amount of exercise that you do in a day?
Today is my day off, actually, like day off on my training program. So I did some push-ups and squats. So like a day on for me is running 4 to 5 to 6 miles right now until I really start ramping it up, or biking 40 minutes. If it's good Netflix, it's an hour and a half bike. But like a day off, with running so much, you're prone to injuries with like IT band or some small muscle injuries that can lead to bigger injuries. So I have to pay attention to like strengthening my booty, because that's really big for running, and just doing like little exercises that will help my running. So the least exercise, I can't do nothing because I'm so like crazy. Like walking my dog would be the least. But definitely start every day with movement. I have to like do something in the morning, whether it's jumping jacks or push-ups or something, every morning just to, yeah.
I've got one more.
One more.
So what you said usually when you go into the hospital now, you think it's probably because of allergies or something like that. Are you still culturing bacteria?
Yes, so the question is, am I still culturing bacteria? And when I go in the hospital, kind of what's the root cause? I went in August because I started to, my lung function dropped into the 70s, which was a change for me to go from the 80s to the 70s. I felt really tired. So if I'm tired, something's wrong. And I was coughing up more and coughing up blood and all this stuff. So I do still culture Pseudomonas. And even that first year when I was barely producing any mucus, I still cultured it. So that's why I have to do treatments, right? So even my friends were like, why do you still have to do that stuff? And I was like, because I still have the Pseudomonas, and that can turn into an infection, right? So we still treat that. And I tend to do IVs versus orals, because orals like Cipro and stuff have been known to mess with my tendons. So if I'm training like all year, then I can't risk that. So I'd rather just get my port accessed and do IVs so I can still run and ride with the IVs. So yeah, once you're like in your 30s and you've been doing this for a while, you kind of figure out what works best for you. When your kids get into their teens, they'll be like, hey, Mom, I think I need to go to the hospital, or hey, Dad. We really get to know our bodies better than almost anybody out there because we know how we should feel, we can feel, and how we shouldn't feel. And we really, by our teens, get to know that. And we help. I mean, at that point, kids should be talking to their doctors about their symptoms. You can interject with what you notice, but it's the kids who really know their body the best, unless they're lying because they don't want to go into the hospital, which we do it. I feel great. No, yeah. Well, you look terrible. Thanks. I get that one a lot. Yeah.
So, I'm the social worker you met over there.
Yep.
I won't report your parents.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what is probably the most helpful or supportive thing that your care team has done for you, and what's been the least helpful?
It's a great question. I think the most supportive thing, my pediatric care team was like my family. They were awesome and always there. I think the biggest thing is when you call the clinic because you're sick, is when the pediatric nurse will be like, we'll get here right now and we'll get you figured out and admitted or whatever we need to do. Just being there and making you feel like family and they want to help you. And the worst thing is my adult side calling when you're sick and they don't call you for 3 days. Yeah, because when I call, I'm actually sick. I don't call unless I'm sick, and I'm not sick that often anymore, so it's like I'm actually calling because I am sick and I feel really bad. So it's a direct line of communication, which is nice. I have my doctor and I are very tight. He's a runner, so our clinic appointments go like this. How are you feeling? Good? Well, how's your running going? So we just talk about running for 45 minutes. But I can email him at any point if I'm sick or if I need a script, and he'll respond right away and get it taken care of. Because he knows I'm not working the system. I'm sick and I want to get better so I can continue running and cycling, and that's what he's there for. So it's cool to have a great relationship with your care team. Yeah.
My daughter is a runner.
Cool.
And she'd love a pair of sneakers.
We'll hook her up.
But, so, for running to equal a medication, what would her target be? Like how many miles a week or how many miles a day? Like 2 miles, I'm sure is not enough. Is it
Right.
5 miles? 10
Well,
miles?
that's what we're trying to study. Nobody has that answer yet. That's why we need to fund this study because we don't know. So the end result with that study is what can we say? Is it 3 miles with 2-minute intervals at a 7-minute pace? And it's going to be different for everybody, right? Because some people with CF may not be able to walk a mile, and some are running 100-mile runs in Denver. Not me. That is not me. That's another guy. But so that's the goal, is to be able to figure it out. And then the care team, but then it's another added set of resources where care teams might need a physical therapist. They might need an exercise coach at every clinic to work with each patient to find this individualized program. And maybe it's not running. Maybe it's an erg machine or elliptical. So we're still, who knows how long this is going to be, but all I can say is the vest isn't going to hurt. So do the vest, but then throw in exercise. But even when I travel sometimes, I don't bring my vest. So I'll run. Like I went to Florida for 9 days. I ran every day. The days I didn't run, my mom pounded me. So it's like there's a quality of life versus being crazy. Not crazy, but in my mind I'm crazy. But you got to find what works for you and for your kid. But stay tuned on that info. It will be cool. Oh, here she is again, ladies and gentlemen. Just kidding. I'll get you next.
Aside from your parents, like, really just letting you be a normal kid,
Mhm.
what would you say is the thing that they did the most that really supported you as
Right.
you were growing up?
This is great. So it's about my parents, and aside from them letting me be who I was and supporting me, like what else did they do? And we never made CF a focus. And I talked about this in Denver this weekend, is we don't talk about CF. It's not because we deny that I have it. We have never made it a focus. My parents don't call me and say, how you feeling? But my mom, she'll know something's wrong. She can tell, again, these mothers, they're wild. She can know if something's wrong just by the tone of my voice or something in my voice, right? And my uncles are the same way. They're out of state, but we talk and they know, like, what's going on with you. But my parents and immediate family members and even friends never talk about CF. My parents with my fundraising and Rock CF don't ever speak on my behalf. They never say, my daughter has, they don't do that stuff, which I totally appreciate. They let me speak on my behalf. If I want them to share something on Facebook, they'll share it. Or sometimes my dad he types in caps, LOL, all the time. I'm like, Dad, what do you do? He needs a little lesson in Facebook. But we just have never made CF a focus. It's never stopped us from doing anything. And it's never been like, well, she has CF, but yeah, we can do that. Never once. And that's how it is now to this day. They don't do anything CF related until they're like, hey, what do you think if we do this? I might join this board for something. I'm like, okay. But they won't ever step in and do Rock CF stuff or anything. My dad will wear a Rock CF t-shirt when he cuts the grass, or he'll wear a Rock CF hat when he's going to the brewery in town, but he won't, they never harp on it, bring it up, or talk about it unless it's a CF event. Or I travel here today and they ask how it went, and I say it's great, the parents are awesome. It's like they've never spoken on my behalf or made CF the first point of any conversation, even when I'm in the hospital. Which I'm not sure if there's a psychiatrist in the house, if that's a good thing, but I'm sick and the nurses ask you, how you doing? And I'm like, great, how are you? And I'm like, well, I'm obviously sick. I've flown down to see my brother in Florida and spent Christmas with him because his wife was touring in Asia. So I'm like, I'll go spend Christmas with my brother. It'll be great. We're walking down the street, and at this point, my lung function was maybe 70. It had gone up from exercise, but I still had the CF cough and the CF lungs, right? So we're walking down the street, and all of a sudden we start laughing, and I take a deep breath, and I let it out, and I'm like, dude, I think I'm on this stuff. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, something really crazy is happening right now where I don't have any mucus in my lungs, and that has not happened since I was in first or second grade. And he's like, cool. I'm like, no, this is crazy. This is only 4 days, and I feel this good in 4 days. So I get back and I go to my my study appointment, and we do PFTs, and it's 82 or 86 or 88. I can't remember what happened first. And I was like, oh, the 80s. I haven't seen you ever. This is cool. And then you go to CF clinic, and you got to do a sputum culture, and I try to cough, and I'm like, I don't have anything to cough up. So for the first year and a half on this clinical trial, I didn't cough once in the year and a half, legit cough. So if I did get a cold, it barely turned into a cough. And the cough was people who kind of fake, they act like they want to have CF, so they'll cough. I felt like that. I don't know if there are people like that, but I just picture myself as a poser. I just felt crazy. My energy went through the roof, which can't get much higher. And I said to myself, I'm like, okay, I finally read up about this drug, and I'm like, oh, it kind of affects my CFTR protein. I'm like, that's cool. And my G551D, whatever that is. Because here's the deal. Now you guys meet your parents, and you're like, what's your kid's mutation? And I'm like, people started asking me that a couple years ago. I'm like, you didn't even buy me a drink first. You cannot ask me that question. Because CF is, in my generation, in my era, it's cystic fibrosis. And we knew about the Delta F508, now whatever it's called, Delta, whatever, because that's the only gene that we really knew and talked about. We just treated CF with IVs and inhaled antibiotics and enzymes. But now we're so specific where we know what each of our proteins does and how it doesn't work. So that's where Kaleido really comes into play. And I start reading up on this stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is not a cure for CF, but it's actually treating CF at the cell and not just my symptoms, right? So my symptoms of, I think the next slide, my symptoms of coughing kind of went away for a while. And at one point, I'm like, let's just take the port out of my arm. I told my doctor, I'm like, I don't need this port, take it out. Okay, don't ever say that because I've needed it a few times since. So I got a little cocky. Don't do that. The biggest and funniest thing was, you know how we have that salty sweat? Really salty sweat. So when I would go out and bike on 90-degree days, go out and do 50, 60 miles, my black bike shorts would be gray because all the sweat from my arms and legs would turn them gray. So I'm like, okay, if this stuff's really affecting CF at the root cause, it should be affecting my sodium chloride levels because when you go in for this study, they do a sweat test every time, right? And I never saw the results, so I'm like, I'm gonna do my own little test and see what the results show. So I was at a gym working out, and this is always like how a good story starts. One day at band camp. No, I was at a gym working out on the elliptical, and this place was like mirrored all around, right? There's about 20 or 30 people working out, and I'm like, I gotta see if this stuff is really working. So I'm working out, blah, 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 and I lick my arm, and then I look around, I'm like, nobody saw that, okay. So then I like sweat some more, and I lick my arm again, and it's not salty. And I'm like, okay, this stuff is really working. Not only has my cough like disappeared, I feel great. I've never felt like this in my entire life. My sweat is like not salty anymore. So I hopped off and I'm texting people. I'm like, this stuff really works. This stuff really works. This is legit. It's treating CF at the root cause. And come to find out, after talking to like Bob Bell and all the guys at the foundation, when they got the research back, the biggest thing, or the one thing that really made these guys like cry and realize that this stuff works was sure, like weight went up like per patient on average by 6 pounds. Pulmonary function climbed. Hospitalizations were reduced. The biggest thing that really got them was sweat chloride levels in CF patients went to at or below a CF diagnosis. So that's stuff you don't really hear about with Kalydeco. You just hear like people are good and they're not as sick. But think about like a pill. It's definitely more powerful than zinc. Really treats CF at the root cause. And I today feel better than I've ever felt in my entire life, which is crazy because if 5 years ago, 6 years ago, somebody was like, I've got a little blue pill, I'd been, well, maybe would have been a little bit intrigued since it was a little blue pill. But, well, I mean, Google that too. No, don't Google that. Don't video that. Kids. I would be like, you guys, okay, cool, cute, it's a pill. Because in my mind, the only drugs for CF that were effective were the drugs that, I know enzymes work, because if you don't take them, you know you should have taken your enzymes, right? And I know Pulmozyme works because it works, and Toby works, and Caistin works, and these drugs that treat the symptoms dead on, those drugs work. But a pill, what's that gonna do, right? Oh no, this stuff is crazy awesome, and it's changed my life completely. I still have had some exacerbations since, and it's usually caused by allergies or season change or whatever. And my weight has been good, and I'm not as salty anymore, and I just feel better than I've ever felt my entire life. And I can't believe it. If somebody would have said, a pill is gonna make you feel this good, I would have laughed at them, because there's no way, right? And I'm anxious. This is the Model T, right? I'm from Detroit, so we know cars. The first car was like a steam engine or whatever, but the first automobile was the Model T, right? And now we have Teslas, and we've got the new Volkswagen Golf All-Track coming out next year. Scoping that. But we've seen this giant progression in cars, right? This drug is the Model T of drugs that treat CF at the root cause. So you guys, while discouraged that your kids may not be able to take Kalydeco or Orkambi, this is just the first drug of its kind. So you should be so excited about where we're going, because it's going to get awesome. And then like very soon, things are awesome. And there's a little science chat at the end, I think, so I'm very excited about that. Running and riding is so much easier. I can go bus like 10 miles and barely cough, whereas before I would leave a trail of, I couldn't get lost, because pre-Kalydeco I would cough and spit and cough and spit and cough and spit, and then I would just turn around and follow the trail home. Now it's like I go out and run and I'm feeling great. I can run faster, so my training program for New York, I've got a coach who's, she's an Olympic trials athlete this year. She tried to get into the Olympics for marathon. She has me doing speed work, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I have to now because I'm on Kalydeco and I feel good. I can't dog it. Like, I have to push myself to do the most that I can, because not everyone, you know, there's 5 to 8% of people qualify for Kalydeco, and those people are doing pretty good as a whole, I guess. So I'm like, I have to take full advantage of this because my friends aren't as fortunate, so I got to push myself to really live it up. And living up, I'm doing. Okay, so yeah, that's pulmonary function. It's cool. It peaked at like 93, high 80s. Now I'm sitting at 82, but that's just a number, right? Numbers are just numbers. So we'll just continue on with my life right now because of Kalydeco. And I think I set myself up for Kalydeco at its best because of exercise and my lifestyle change before Kalydeco. I put myself in a great position to really benefit the most from this drug. And that's because of diet and exercise. So now I bought my first house in December, which is great, until 2 months later a water pipe burst in my kitchen, and I was been without a kitchen for 9 weeks. Yeah, they like ripped everything out. But just last week they put the cabinets in. My mom is actually at home right now painting my kitchen. I know, they put new drywall in and she's painting it. I keep getting pictures. This is great. I get home tonight and hopefully she better be done. Let's just say that. So that's awesome. Anything but the kitchen you can have back. That's my puppy. I got her in January. So it's my first dog. That's my own. You can follow her on Instagram if you'd like. She's getting her first second haircut right now. My mom's taking her there too. So I printed out pictures of this, not this, no poodle cut, and a bandana and not bows. So if I get home and there's any of those things, we're having trouble. But that's like my first puppy. Then my nieces. What's cuter than kids with dogs? Not much. So these are my nieces who are going to take over for Rock CF when I retire. Casey's on the left. She's a brain and just sweetest thing. And the little one on the right is crazy. She's insane, but I love it. She's crazy. We have a great time. And then there's a third one coming in November. I think due on the day of the New York Marathon. So my parents are, they're going to buy the ticket to New York, but not sure if they're going to be able to. What do you got, baby or me? I think New York Marathon wins. What do you think? Can I get a vote? Can I get a vote? Yep. Because there might only be one New York Marathon, and this is the third kid, okay? It's that easy. So this is the second part of that video. I don't know. I wouldn't be here today without running. That's why I keep running. So now I have to not only run for CF, I have to run for my future and my future health, which nobody ever thought we would need to do. I love trail running. It's just nice to be around nature and not having to fight with cars. So it clears my mind. You know, it's that one time where I can be like everyone else. I meet a group to run, they don't know I have CF. I can't put a number on how many people that we've kind of helped start running, but it's a growing number and it's going in the right direction. That's the worst part about CF is getting to know these people and then they don't make it, right? So cystic fibrosis, it's something that you're born with. It causes your body to produce this really thick and sticky mucus. So right now the current median age of survival is like 40 years old. It makes me work harder in my own life. 2007, I established the Rock CF Foundation as a nonprofit. My whole thing is awareness and positivity, and if I can do something I love and change people's lives, I'm in. The Rock CF Bubbles and Bow Ties is an awesome new event that we started to create a bunch of awareness about CF, bring people together. That's the coolest part is I get to connect with these people and they actually trust me. And they're like, well, let's ask Emily. Okay. All of us are doing so well. Exercise is really good for us. And now I'm the healthiest I've ever been in my entire life. My lung function's 88%, which is the highest it's ever been in my life. So now there's a lot of research and studies going on to see if we can track down an appropriate way to prescribe exercise as medicine. Yeah, running is kind of who I am right now. It's a big part of my life, and it's a big part of my health and my future, keeping me alive. I run to live.
Audio Jungle.
Yeah, so here it is. I started unofficially in 2004. When I turned 21, we had this rock and roll concert, and I know you guys are planning a rock show out here this summer, right? Down in Portland? Yeah, cool.
Here,
Oh, it's in Augusta. Sweet, maybe I'll come back. No way. Oh, I want to be there. CF Stock, 2016. What month?
July 10th, it's a Sunday.
July 10th, if you're watching. CF Stock, that's awesome. All right, so we got to mud up the grass, right, and just go crazy. Okay, so my brother was in a band at the time, and I'm like, I want to do something a little different. We still went to great strides, and we still did all these other events with the CF Foundation, but I want to do something different and bring these people together for a rock show, right? Because I felt like the 18 to 35-year-old crowd was kind of being left out of the CF picture unless you had a kid with CF or a sister or brother with CF or a cousin. So we brought these people to the show, we sold out the show, and we were able to educate them about CF. And then we kept doing it, and then I started playing in a band, and then this concert kind of snowballed into an annual thing, which was fun. Then I officially founded Rock CF in 2007. At this time, I was still like social securing it and working Rock CF and working retail just to like pay some bills. And then luckily about 3 years ago, Rock CF became like my full-time gig. So now I'm able to travel around and speak to awesome people like you and be online and sell this merchandise that's all over the world, which is the coolest thing, like to see somebody in Sydney, Australia, like come through with 10 shirts that they want to buy. It's like, what? You're in Australia. What's going on? This isn't that cool, but they love it, and it just like makes my life. We do another event, a golf event. The biggest event is the Rock CF Half Marathon, where, again, we wanted to start an event that would bring people together who don't have CF, though include people with CF, but if they don't have CF, get them together and then get them behind the cause. So now in our 6th year, we've got 2,500 runners, and from all like 20-some states that come in to run our race all over Canada. And we raise $110,000 for Rock CF so we can fulfill our mission and also donate research money to the CF Foundation for research, and then work with groups like Ronnie to fund this research about exercise. So we're busy. I've got one guy who works for me. He's actually the kid I used to babysit. He and his brothers, I used to change his diapers, but now he's changing mine. No. It might come to that one day. Hopefully my nieces take over before that. But it's awesome, and I'm able to do what I love, and I never honestly dreamed that I could do it, right? I always kind of wanted to be a social worker type person, but now this is even cooler because I don't have anybody telling me what to do. I'm doing my own thing and meeting awesome families and parents and patients and care teams, and it's so cool. So one of our programs, which I think is next, is called Kicks Back, and I don't know if any of you guys have been a part of it yet, so my big thing is I want to inspire others with CF to exercise. And we do this program, I target it towards adolescents, teens, and young adults because I was that young adult who thought I was too sick to exercise and didn't want to exercise because it was hard, right? So this program is two things. It A, gives running shoes to people with CF to inspire them to run or walk or join a gym, and then we'll sign them up for a race of their choice. The other side is you may be a runner, like a guy in my area, he runs half marathons and marathons, and he finishes like 5th out of 2,500 at my race, and he has CF. He just can't afford these new shoes every 3 months, so we supply him with shoes just to keep him going, right? So the next slide shows pictures of 2 of our recipients. The kid who's just awesome, and he's a runner, I think, in middle school. And then on the right here, she's wanting to get into exercise. So we've given, last year we gave away 100 pair of shoes. This year we're already up to like 80, and it's only the end of April. So it's growing, and it's for CF patients. And we're trying to work on something where we can work parents into the mix too, because I always get questions from parents. How can I get my kid to exercise? And I think kids learn everything from the parents, I think, right? And teachers. But parents set the example and they set the bar. So if I can get like something worked out with parents where we get them in the mix too, or caregivers, that would be awesome. But right now we just want to get patients moving or people with CF, and it doesn't have to be running. Just find something they love to do and get them exercising and get them going. And this program so far has been great. We've shipped shoes, I think, almost to all 50 states, and we just want to give away shoes. So I can email someone from the care center an application to give to you guys, or you can get it on the Rock CF site, or email me, or just get it, because I want to help you guys out. Got to get these kids moving. So this is kind of where I leave the end of this conversation until you guys start asking me questions, because I brought giveaways. If you ask me a question, you get a free thing. Bribery, it always works. So like I said, when I was diagnosed, you guys know my story. It was median age of survival was not amazing. But in Denver, I didn't hear anyone say this, but in Knoxville or somewhere, Baltimore. 3 people before I spoke said the median, 50% of people with CF are over the age of 18. An infection, but my mom's motto is everything's fine, and it's pretty funny because I could say, like, my mom would be vacuuming, she chopped her arm off or something, and she'd be vacuuming, holding the one chopped off arm in her hand and vacuuming with her teeth, and she's like, everything's fine. That's kind of the motto, and I think that's the title of my book that I'm going to write is Everything's Fine, because it's really kind of been in the back of my head, and everything's fine even if you're sick. Right. I don't know. It's funny. It's funny. I appreciate my parents more than anything, though. And there's, in the one video that's out now with Vertex, that's the one of the points that I talk about is my parents. Appreciating them for never speaking on my behalf or just, again, it's making CF a point of our life. Of course, my life is CF, right? I'm rock CF, but I never let it, like, run my life, you know? It's just, it's who I am. It's weird, but cool. Do you have
Yeah, I just had one question. The videos that you were trying to show, are those available online?
Yeah, so the videos that you watched and couldn't hear, those were from Mizuno Running Shoe Company and Competitor Magazine. They came out in May last year, so if you just look up Rock CF plus Mizuno or Emily Schaller Mizuno, they'll pop up. And they did a great job, and I don't really run through that area, so I spend, like, you know how people, Hollywood likes to play up? They're like, I do run in Detroit, but I spend, like, Rock CF's my thing, but Detroit is, like, bigger my thing. Like, I spend my whole life defending Detroit because it's so awesome. And then they do that, and I'm like, oh, man, when I speak out of town, people must really think that's Detroit. And it is, but that's, like, a tiny little area that nobody, like, the Europeans go and take pictures there because it's ruin, and they like taking pictures of ruin. But, like, Detroit is actually beautiful and fun to run with. But Hollywood likes to play up the grid. But yeah, they're online. They're great. And there's another fella from Michigan who also won that little contest, and he's a vet, and his story's pretty awesome too. Yeah. So reach out anytime via Facebook or at the Rock CF website. We're going to be overhauling that hopefully this year, making it more cooler, if you will. And yeah, I've got merchandise for sale. It's only a very small fraction of what we have online, and we ship everywhere in the world. So check it out. And I'm here for you guys. Email me anytime. Cool.